Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Grid Live Encore. I'm Ben Schneider. Kobe Lambeth is in for Brandon Crosslin tonight, and Joshua Burch joins us as well to recap Formula 2 and Formula 3. Gentlemen, how's it going tonight?
It's going
I'm
well.
doing very well, thank you. Good, Kobe? Look what's
Yeah.
going on.
I'm doing well. It's an honor filling in for Brandon tonight. I've been watching the Grit Live Encore show ever since I was on during the very first few episodes, and really nice to see this program really growing on a Monday night. So glad to be here.
Well, it's great to have you here. Of course, you're going to be joining us a little bit later on. Right now, Josh, we're going to talk a little bit of F3 and F2 action, and we'll start with the sprint race in Formula 3. David Vidales took, apologize, got the feature race up there. David Vidales took victory, I believe, in the sprint race. I see our graphics still have Victor Martins up there. But he took victory after starting from reverse grid pole position. The young American Jack Crawford scored his third career runner-up finish as he continues to knock on the door of his first F3 win. Victor Martins encountered mechanical trouble in the sprint race, but recovered as well as you possibly could by winning the feature race. Ironically, Vidales had trouble of his own in the feature, retiring after 15 laps due to a collision with Arthur Leclerc. Now, Martins holds a 6-point lead in the championship following the feature race. So, Josh, I'll bring you back in here. We are a third of the way through the F3 season. Who has stood out to you the most at this point in the year?
I'm surprised with that far into the season already, actually. 3 great rounds, 6 different winners from that as well. It's been some fantastic racing in Formula 3 as well. A true spectacle about how fast these young guys are. And it's been some of the best championship battles we've seen. Standing out for me, definitely, Arthur Leclerc as well, the younger brother of Charles Leclerc. He has been constant in all of the races this year as well, always fighting for positions. Even when he has a bad starting position, whether or not it is decided by the reverse grid for the sprint, or even if he has a bad day on Friday and the feature race isn't as good as well, he fights back through the field as well. His overtakes are just like his brothers, cutthroat and right up there to the point as well. Isaac Hadjar as well, someone who's been really surprising me, stood out for me a lot in Imola, again stood out for me here this weekend in Barcelona. Victor Martins, championship leader. He's had some up and down races, didn't score in Bahrain race 1, didn't score in Barcelona race 1. As you said, he had that problem as well, but he's got a victory. He's got 2 victories now as well, so that's a great job. Further down on the deck as well, Jack Crawford, he's been remaining consistent as well, which looks good for you lot over there in America. So I'm thinking there's some good ones as well. One man, Monaco Correa, will get a special mention to me though as well. His first season back, and he is throwing it about up there as well. It took the lead as well in the feature race, but sadly got overtaken when his tyres started to go down as well and dropped further back in the field. I think he dropped to in the end, down his 10th place. But some good, strong things in the first half of Formula 3, and I think it's been one of the stronger junior series we've actually seen this year.
Yes, again, I do apologize. I believe we copied our feature graphics onto the sprints by accident, but no big deal there. Josh, as always, I appreciate your insight. And yes, Jack Crawford as well. It's very exciting for us here in the United States. Of course, we're still looking for our first full-time American driver in a decade and a half, really. And Jack Crawford, I know it's going to be a couple of years if and when he gets to that point. But he has certainly looked very strong. He's the highest driver in points right now who's yet to win a race. So he's doing about as well as you could ask for at this point in his career. It's been exciting to watch him grow. And I'm sure he's only going to continue to improve as the season goes on.
Yeah, and I reckon as well he'll be into Formula 2 next year for sure. He's been one of those drivers that is, again, as I said, he's always in the top 5 as well. He's always showing some good points as well. And you were saying about American drivers being into Formula 1, if it wasn't for the fact that it's the Indy 500 this weekend as well, and Colton Herta is racing, I would have been right on the money in saying that Colton would have filled in for Lando Norris because, of course, Lando has been diagnosed with tonsillitis late last night as well, and looks like he's not going to be racing in Monaco as well. So it's up to now. We can't get any of the Indy guys to fall in, which is a shame.
If I may just follow up with that real quickly, I believe Oscar Piastri has been leased out by Alpine. He's now the designated reserve for McLaren as well. Do you think he would be the one to step in if Lando can't go this weekend?
He's the natural selection as well for Oscar Piastri. Well, no F2 driver can do it because they're racing at Monaco as well. Oscar Piastri knows the team as well. Many of them used to share the engines as well with Renault. So he used to be linked with them. So Alpine very kindly lent him to me earlier on in the year when we thought that Ricciardo couldn't race when he had COVID in Barcelona, in Bahrain. But we asked this question, didn't we, in the Grid Network chat? And the two drivers, of course, who could race, Nick de Vries and Stoffel van Dorn. Now, they are the Mercedes reserve drivers as well, of course, share power unit. But they're also the Williams reserve drivers, so we don't know. There's definitely 3 seats. So there's definitely 3 drivers going for that seat, and that's Van Dorn, De Vries, and Piastri. Personally, I think, as you say, Piastri is going to get it because everybody wants to give him a shot. And McLaren were already going to use him in Bahrain to fill in for Ricciardo. But luckily, Ricciardo was able to be back in time.
Well, I'm sure that's certainly the last way any driver would want to make his Formula One debut, but nonetheless could be a good opportunity for Piastri to prove that he should have been on the grid this year anyway. I know we talked a little bit about that on Grid Tonight this week when discussing Fernando Alonso's comments. So certainly a lot of things to keep your eye on in regards to that team as well. Now, Josh, you mentioned F2. They'll be back in Monaco as well. So that's not going to be an option for somebody to fill in. But let's talk about the F2 race weekend in Spain. And again, starting with the sprint race. And actually, we'll go ahead and just talk about it all right here because it was one man sweeping the weekend. It was Felipe Drugovich taking wins in both the sprint and the feature races. Tough luck for Callum Williams suffering a stalling issue on the grid, which forced him to start from the pit lane, and that led to only a 16th place finish. But Drugovich also took the points lead from Theo Porcher this weekend. So, Josh, how impressed were you with Drugovich with everything he had to overcome all throughout these 2 races? And is he looking like the early championship favorite to you?
He's taken the championship lead, as you said there as well, and he was just on fire. I mean, he didn't have pole for the sprint race. He sort of got looked into that position as well with Williams stalling on the grid. But honestly, that is a masterclass of how to get your championship back on track for Drugovich as well. So fantastic. He's done the double. It's very, very, very rare we see doubles being done in Formula 2 as well. So very, very impressive for him as well. Becomes, I think, the second driver to repeat winners this year, here alongside Theo Porcher as well. I think this is Drugovich's 3rd win of the season. I think he won in Bahrain off the top of my head. I think it was Drugovich and Porcher as well. So, yeah, fantastic for Drugovich as well. Early championship favourite, 100%. Do I see him even in Formula 1 next year? I actually do see him in Formula 1 next year. He's got that raw talent that the F1 teams sniff out as well. He's fast, but also reliable. And he gives some great feedback back to the team about how the car is feeling as well across all of qualifying and practice as well. He was telling the team just a few more inches on the front roll bar as well. The car's not turning in. It's a bit twisty at the rear as well. So he got hooked up perfectly on this track. And MP Motorsport as well did a fantastic job as well in the feature race with the tyres as well. They kept him out as long as possible on the softs, came in and changed over to the mediums, while his teammate Clement Novalak did the exact opposite, and they were able to get 2 top 5 results as well. Brilliant from the team, and I think MP is going to be one to watch this year. Also, quickly, saw Adam's comment in the chat. I know it flashed up, but I wasn't answering. Thanks for that as well. It's been a really successful weekend as well. There it is, about qualifying. Over 9,000 viewers watched the qualifying for the Indy 500 on the YouTube channel. So thank you very much for everybody as well, because I know a lot of people cross over both channels. It was fabulous.
Yeah, certainly a great weekend for you. And you're absolutely right. I think about Drugovich. And of course, if he wins the F2 championship, there really would be no excuse for him not to at least get looked at by a handful of F1 teams for 2023. So he's certainly off to a great start. Now, it's fitting that, well, before we get into the Indy 500, we'll cover that in a second, Josh. It's fitting that you brought that up. You may have noticed only 21 drivers on our results list. Ralph Beauchamp was forced to withdraw from the race weekend due to some neck pain, and we certainly want to wish him a speedy recovery here, and hopefully he can get back on the grid soon. Now, shifting gears over to Monaco. My bad. Sorry about that.
That looked good. I like
Yeah.
that.
We've trying these new graphics out here, but we'll try that another day. In the meantime, let me get these Indy 500 qualifying results up because I do want to give a quick update on that here. Scott Dixon took pole position for the 5th time in his career. He'll be looking for his second 500 win on Sunday. Dixon's 4-lap average broke 234 miles an hour, the fastest pole speed ever at the Speedway, and the second fastest 4-lap average in the history of the Speedway across all 4-lap averages, of course, behind only Arie Luyendyk's 236.986 miles an hour record that he set in the 1996 qualifications. So, Kobe, we'll go to you first on this one. Dixon has been so fast at IMS all throughout his career, but shockingly has only won the race one time. Of course, he did so in 2008. Is this the year he finally wins the 500 again?
Pick a Ganassi, any Ganassi. All 5 of those Ganassi Hondas are extremely fast this week. You can't go wrong with any 5 of those cars. And a lot of people wondered heading into Indianapolis, could Chip Ganassi Racing handle all 5 cars? Because in the past we're used to them, running 3-4 cars at Indy, but I don't believe we've seen them run 5. They might have in the past, but considering how competitive IndyCar is nowadays and stretching your resources thin, a lot of people are wondering if Chip Ganassi Racing could add a 5th car to the stable and still produce some really fast Hondas. And I guess anybody who doubted them, they've definitely proved them wrong because all 5 of their cars made it into the Fast 12, and then four of their cars made 4 out of 5 of their cars made it into the Firestone Fast 6, which is absolutely an incredible accomplishment for them. And Ben, it's really crazy that Scott Dixon, everything he's accomplished in his career, all those race wins, 6 IndyCar championships, Crown Jewel sports car race wins, and he's only won the Indy 500 once. And and that's really a shocking stat within itself. And I think this year Scott Dixon will have a really great chance to get Indy 500 win number 2. And when we're doing our coverage last week of Grit Tonight all week long, we talked about that a little bit, and I said that Scott Dixon, when he won in 2008, he was a much younger driver then, and sometimes when you're a young driver like that, you may not appreciate winning Indy as much as you did then compared to now. Since he's more mature now, he's a family man now. So maybe if Scott Dixon wins the Indy 500 next Sunday, he'll be able to really soak it in and appreciate it a lot more, because time is certainly running out on his NTT IndyCar Series racing career.
You missed a golden opportunity to say he's now a family guy as well. That would have been a perfect segue, and we could have done a couple of jokes there about Peter Griffin. Anyway, yeah, I'm reckoning as well. I'm surprised Dixon didn't win back in 2020 when he had that amazing start to the season as well. Got the win at Texas as well. What was it? Winning 4 races in the opening 5. That was insanity from Dixon as well. He was really on the money. And, of course, then he lost out on the 500. 2008, so long ago now as well. I think that's, 3 generations of IndyCar back now in terms of the chassis. Maybe even 4, thinking about it as well. So it's around about time Dixon gets another one as well. But come on, fastest ever lap for pole position as well. I know we've had a 2:36, but it is the fastest official pole lap time as well. Adam says, I'm going with a Ganassi car. I'm not going to say who. I wonder if it would be Jimmy Johnson. That seems to be the general consensus as well. I've gone brave. I've said my early pick as well after the opening is actually for Marcus Ericsson to take victory as well. He was my early pick. He looks consistent across the board as well. I did say Sato after the first 3 days, but then he's dropped back. So, fastest ever front row, fastest ever pole time. Dixon does look nailed on. But 500 miles, anything can happen. And it's all about where you are in the field, how much fuel you got in with 20 to go. It's going to be great. It's going to be one of the best 500s we've ever seen. And also, just quickly, because I know you're going to go to the All-Star race as well, our first crasher today as well, Dalton Kellett. Sato went to the inside turn 1, forced Kellett to the high line, lost the rear tyre down at turn 1, spun it round. Car lifted up on its right side. He's okay. Car's a write-off. He's going to have to get his backup car ready for carb day as well on Friday, but which is more of a problem because now he's going to have his backup car ready and no testing on it. So unlikely Dalton Kellett's going to do well, but everyone loves an underdog story. First crash of the year here at the Brickyard.
Certainly, all credit to the drivers that we've made it this far without one of those. Kobe, you want to jump in on that as well?
Oh yes, and Josh, and don't remember we have the Carb Day practice session coming up on Friday, so Dalton Keller will at least get to shake down his car, and see if everything's working out well, and hopefully AJ Foyt Racing they'll certainly get that car fixed back up. But a lot of the times in IndyCar, especially with these cars, I know we've talked about it all last week, how the teams like to build Indy 500 specific cars because there's it's the little things that matters the most on these cars to unlock the most speed possible. And with a crash like this, it can be a major setback, and the car might not be as fast as it was once before. So that's one of the worries that Dalton Keller's team is going to have. And I was talking about Chip Ganassi Racing being stretched thin. I actually went back and looked. In 2015, they ran 5 cars in the Indy 500 with Scott Dixon, Tony Kanaan, Charlie Kimball, Sage Karam, and Sebastian Saveja. Just wanted to point that out.
Sebastian Vieira, yeah. I was trying to think which one was it. I thought it might have been Bourdais as well, but he last race, I think was it with Maya Shank racing before he left? I think it was somebody on the line, yeah. I was thinking it was back in 2009 was the last time they won it. So yeah, good spot there, Kobe.
No, they doubled their full-time entry because they had the 2 target cars for a while, and then in 2011, Graham Rahal and Charlie Kimball came on. So I was thinking there had to have been at least 1 year where they brought a 5th car out for the 500 only. But yeah, good stat there. And I think Ganassi, or it might be Ganassi versus the field, is what it's shaping up to look like. Josh, I think you're right. A lot of people are sleeping on Marcus Ericsson, maybe because he doesn't have the experience of a Scott Dixon or a Tony Kanaan. But I think he's been just as fast as his teammates, and obviously Alex Palou's the defending champion. And what more can you say about Jimmy Johnson? I think surprising all of us with how quickly he's picked things up, and like I said here on this program last week, looks like a legitimate contender as well.
3rd today, if I remember correctly, the timing sheets.
Yes, it was 3rd.
Yeah. So that just proves as well, he may not be there in qualifying, but he's got the race pace, because today's practice, they were all about racing as well, and trying to see how the cars work with the toes of several cars. And he's a dark horse, I feel like, in this one. I'm honestly so excited. This is going to be the best Indy 500 we have ever seen. I can't wait.
Well, we've got a lot to live up to. If you remember what happened last year, of course, Elio winning his 4th. Of course, Elio winning his 5th would top it. I think Meyer Shank's got a little bit of work to do to catch the Ganassi cars, but Jimmy Johnson becoming the 3rd to win Daytona and Indy would be equally as special as well. And, be great to see a popular driver like Scott Dixon finally get his 2nd as well. So there's a lot of storylines to follow, and I'm sure we'll be covering those here all throughout the rest of the week, and of course on Grid Live next weekend as we get ready for the 500. In the meantime, though, we have exhibition race to cover. It's the All-Star race. Of course, Grid Live wrap-up was on early yesterday, so didn't get to cover the All-Star race on that. We're going to cover it here now. And it was an absolutely wild All-Star race at Texas Motor Speedway that saw no shortage of controversy whatsoever. Several drivers suffered tire failures, most notably Kyle Busch, which led to a frightening accident that collected both Ross Chastain and Chase Elliott. The biggest controversy, however, occurred coming to the checkered flag. Ryan Blaney was being called home to the win by Mike Joy in the Fox Sports booth, but the caution lights came on right as Blaney was mere feet away from taking the checkered flag as Ricky Stenhouse Jr. brushed the wall coming off of turn 2. Now, the All-Star race's overtime rules were a little bit different. They required a green flag finish. Even if the leader had taken the white flag, it had to finish under green no matter what. Blaney thought he had won the race and took his window net down before he was informed by his team that the race was not over. Now, Blaney was unable to fully reattach his window net, but NASCAR allowed him to stay on the track as the race restarted. He did go on to win the race. I think it was very fortunate that he did, given the controversy that has already ensued. It would have only been amplified had that cost him the win. But NASCAR race control came under major scrutiny for not only throwing the last caution, but also allowing Blaney to finish the race without the window net. Now, here is Denny Hamlin not holding back when it comes to race control and what should have happened in the closing laps. Take a look.
Bob, I'm sure you will tweet the rule.
Yeah.
At some point.
I mean, they told
me. It's not, listen, I'm not trying to, this isn't a Denny Hamlin judgment call. I'm just saying, whatever the rule is, let's be consistent and play by the rule. it's unfortunate because he made a mistake. He should have won the race. He was 100 yards from winning the race. But many cars have not won races because of green-white checkered or because of a mistake on a restart at the end. Those things happen. All I ask is that we know what the rules are and we play by them. Where NASCAR really got away with one is we nearly crashed off two, and so when I send them headfirst into traffic and the winning net's down, I don't know. Then they got a lawsuit on their hands.
And that video is from Bob Pockras of Fox Sports. Now, Bob did tweet the rule shortly after tweeting that video, and it states as follows: all window net assembly fasteners must be properly tightened and remain tight during an event. No tape, zip ties, or other devices may be used on the window net at any time, except a single half-inch wide loop of tape around the forged steel latch release lever. The window net must remain flat and tight when in the race position. Bunching, twisting, or rolling of the window net is not permitted. All 1-inch square openings must remain 1-inch square openings when in the race position. Kobe, I think you summed it up very well for all of us and said what all of us were thinking. Very simply, what's going on? I think that's the question that a lot of us were asking last night. Josh, I want to start with you here. In all the series that you cover, I know right before we came on, you brought up Abu Dhabi last year in Formula One. Have you ever seen so much controversy occur so fast and so quickly?
No. And that's surprising because we've had things in the past like Indianapolis, everyone pulling into the grid. But let's not count that one because we knew about it in the morning. The meetings were going on all day. Let's not count Pirelli's Tiregate issues at Silverstone in 2012 because that was happening throughout the race and throughout the weekend. We knew there was going to be a problem. Let's not count Abu Dhabi because we went into that weekend thinking if this happens, then this is going to happen. There's already controversy surrounding the weekend. There was a big negative air around it all as well. It just blew up and it happened. This came out completely out of nowhere. It was literally like someone had just lit a match and threw it in as a passerby. It was fantastic. As somebody, I watched the race, not live. I taped it and watched it this morning when I woke up. I had no clue what happened as well. Purposely kept on social media. And as soon as we got to that, I went on Twitter and all of a sudden it was just bang, out it was. First tweet I saw was what you saw. I saw Kobe's tweet and thinking, okay, is there something else I've missed here as well? Then I started looking as well. At the same time, I was reading through Twitter on my, it was on the phone, but we're using the phone. It was happening in front of me as well. So I was having more information than you lot had at the time. The window net being down, that should have been a black flag, but then again, the race should have been over. NASCAR came out and said, yeah, we made a mistake. The race director, he threw the caution a bit too quickly as well. He saw something that thought would have been a problem, so he reacted instinctively. That's great. Keep the drivers safe. What isn't right is the fact is that we have this rule where if the white flag is shown, the next flag ends the race, regardless what it is, yellow, checker, anything. We need to have that rule in place throughout the season, otherwise it's going to get confusing. Now, I said as well, why is it this overtime rule keeps delaying things? We need to get it done. I suggested two things. One, if we go to a restart and the track gets blocked, then we go to a red flag and we have a green-white checker. That's fine. But if there's only one car and the track isn't blocked and they can get through safely at slow speeds, then throw the caution and just end the race there. That needs to be the rule because otherwise this is just ridiculous. I akined it to what happened, Ben, you said it was 2001 in the All-Star race where the track was wet, everyone went to turn one, they all crashed. And I thought, oh, great, that's it. But then NASCAR said, you race your backup cars. So this isn't the first time we've seen controversy in the All-Star race. It's certainly not going to be the last. I'm in the opinion that why are we having All-Star races slap bang in the middle of the season? It doesn't make sense and they don't work. They confuse and anger everybody. Last night, I think, was the last straw. And I know somebody, I think it was you, Benny, put out maybe Ryan Blaney should have £2 million rather than the 1 million because he did win the race twice. And poor old Mike Joy, he was not happy at all.
Well, $2 million here in the States, but
of course, yes,
you get the point. Yes,
yeah.
that's exactly what I tweeted. He won the race twice. I think NASCAR owes him $2 million. And I think I also jokingly said maybe they'll fine him $1 million for racing without the window net and just take the prize away. But, who knows what all is going to happen in the fallout of that. Kobe, I'll give you a chance to answer the question now as well.
Oh boy, this is All-Star Race at Texas Motor Speedway. I'm gonna try to be as nice as I can about this, but to say the least, it was a comedy of errors right from the start. And looking at the continued issues we've seen with the Goodyear tires, it makes me very worried about the Coca-Cola 600. Next Sunday night at Charlotte Motor Speedway, the Texas heat is always brutal this time of year. We saw more Goodyear tires issues. The Coca-Cola 600 Memorial Day weekend at Charlotte, it's always really hot, and thankfully they're going to start in the late evening, and we're going to go deep into the night for 600 miles. But with the way things are going, I'm thinking that Coca-Cola 600 might end up being a race of attrition and seeing which drivers' tires are going to step and which ones are gonna pop. And I feel like we shouldn't be having that conversation at this point in the season. I feel like NASCAR, Goodyear, and the team should have been able to figure out something by this point and getting onto the controversy itself with the finish of the All-Star race. I think a lot of people really had no idea what was going on. That's why I said what's going on. I was reading the All-Star rules before the race started, in between Indy 500 qualifying and the All-Star Open, and I saw in the rules it says that just for the All-Star race, the race must end under green flag conditions, like no matter what. And I read that and I'm like, oh, just shrugged my shoulders. I didn't really think that something like this would actually happen, where that one rule that I'm sure a lot of people skipped over would end up determining how everybody felt about this race. And you even had some of the most prominent motorsports journalists on Twitter that tweeted Ryan Blaney wins the All-Star race. But I know the rules from what I saw, so that's why I hesitated to tweet it, because I saw that you could see the checker flag in the flagman's hand, and then you look on Twitter and you see all of the motorsports journalists tweeting Ryan Blaney wins the All-Star race. But I decided not to, because then I saw the caution lights come on. Everybody thinks the race is over. I'm like, oh my goodness, this is about to be some major trouble. And then the issue with the window net and Ryan Blaney, there was no way that window net was up as safe as it could be, and that was a major issue there. I thought NASCAR might want to be generous and let Ryan Blaney come in and fix the window net, and then let him reclaim his position at the beginning of the field. But all in all, I feel like NASCAR was way too trigger happy with that caution, and the incident that warranted that caution actually did not warrant a caution. It was just Ricky Stenhouse just brushed the wall. Honestly, they should have just threw the checker flag there, and like literally, he was just yards away from taking the checker flag. The race should have been over then and there, and that move just really goes to show you that NASCAR really values entertainment over sport integrity nowadays. That's all. That's what it's all about. They want to have those Game 7 moments, and I understand that, but at the same time, I feel like it was a really bad look for the sport last night, and I do appreciate Scott Miller for coming out and speaking to the media after the race and admitting that we messed up, that the person in race control, the race director, got a little trigger happy with the caution, and it probably shouldn't have happened. And Marcus Smith, the CEO of SMI, went on NASCAR Sirius XM today, and he was very defensive over everything that went on, and he said they sold more tickets this year at the All-Star race at Texas Motor Speedway. And I'm going to read a quote that Smith said, according to Jeff Gluck from The Athletic. And Smith said, "There's just some people out there who like to complain more than anything. If you talk to the fans who were there, they had a great time. But the thing is, that's just a sample size of what went on. And I'm pretty sure a lot of fans, whether you were there in person, watching anywhere around the world, I think a lot of people were really disappointed in how the All-Star race ended, because it should be all about a night of fun, to relax, not take it seriously, but still it ended up being a major boo-boo on NASCAR's forehead, and that's very reflected on the Jeff Gluck poll. Was it a good race? I think we might set a record for the worst race of all time in the Jeff Gluck poll. Last time I looked, it was at 10% of people who said they liked the race, and a whopping 90% who strongly disliked it.
That's Team LH. They've got on board, and they just smell injustice and like to fly around.
obviously I'm going to break the moderator's role here for a second because I have to get my thoughts on this as well. And I really don't even know where to begin. I guess I'll start with Scott Miller's comments, Kobe, like you just brought up. Credit to him for taking ownership and saying we made a mistake, we messed up, the caution should not have come out. Doesn't really do much to change the fact when you say that after it happens, but at least he did own up to it. Marcus Smith's comments, though, I have a bit of an issue with. First of all, the fan experience is always better at the track as opposed to watching it at home. You're there with, tens of thousands of other race fans. You're seeing and hearing the track or the cars on the track for yourself. So the experience is always going to be better. It doesn't matter what happens on the track. I guess the only time the experience might have been better at home than at the track was Spa last year for Formula One, when those fans were getting soaked and they didn't even see a race. But I've said this in multiple tweets now, just having this conversation. Last night was the Mount Everest of incompetence when it comes to race control and race direction and how this race was run. You can't get any higher. You can talk about the 2008 Brickyard 400 with the tire issues. You can talk about the 2005 United States Grand Prix. You can talk about Abu Dhabi last year and what happened in the controversy that led to Max Verstappen taking the title from Lewis Hamilton. You can talk about Spa last year as well. You can talk about the All-Star race 21 years ago. But when there's safety on the line, that's when things really get out of hand. And I think, for NASCAR to allow Ryan Blaney to say they were satisfied, I don't know how you can look at that rule book and then look at the state of Ryan Blaney's window net during that last overtime period and say with a straight face, yeah, he was perfectly safe. There's nothing to be concerned about there. It clearly was not up all the way. And NASCAR should have, in my opinion, not black flagged him, but allowed him to come down pit road to refasten it, because NASCAR has even admitted now that they messed up and threw the caution too quickly. So why not give him the opportunity to come down, slow everybody down, let him rejoin the pack, and then have your entertaining overtime finish, I suppose. The overtime rule also makes no sense to me. I've been very critical of overtime in general, particularly because racing is not a timed sport. So why have we settled on the overtime name instead of green, white, checker? But that's neither here nor there on this subject. Josh, like you were saying, I think I know they always test these things during the All-Star race because it's an exhibition, but this is one area where I think they certainly overstepped that didn't need to happen. When you talk about finishing under green, no matter what, I mean, God forbid if there had been a fireball in a car that had gone into the catch fence, which actually would have warranted a caution, no doubt, but that wasn't the case with Stenhouse. But if that had happened, do we spend 2 hours repairing the catch fence and the track part got burned in the fire, and we have to finish under green even if it happens at 1 a.m. in the morning? I mean, I just don't like setting that precedent, at all, because obviously you never know what's going to happen, and you always have the potential for big accidents if you set that kind of rule at the end of the race, because everybody's turning it up to 11 and they're being a little bit more bold with their moves because it's the last chance. So there's just so much that happened here, and I know we have more of a show to get to. I don't want to monopolize our time, but it was, like I said, just the Mount Everest of incompetence all the way around. There's no other way to describe it.
I've got a feeling that we're going to see big shifts in NASCAR's control as well of these races as well, because I think it was getting ridiculous, the amount of cautions we saw in as well. I mean, even think about back to Daytona as well. We saw cautions for people just brushing the wall. I mean, I think one of them as well was because they were slightly high. Didn't even touch the wall, and the caution came out as well. I think it ended one of the stages as well. It's a really strange rule. I know safety is paramount, but that we're going racing with kid gloves. It's a bit pathetic. Put it as basically as I can. It's no longer racing. For me, actually, it feels like I've got no interest now in watching a race like an all-star race again, because there's no excitement, there's no pressure, and to me as well, there's now no reward, because if they did, Ryan Blaney should have won that. He did win it, luckily, but if he didn't, it's not racing anymore. And even, what does Adam say there? I didn't miss that. I didn't like NASCAR All-Star race. Ross Chastain's accident was bad. Surprised he did not flip over. Yeah, that was a weird one as well. if we go racing, there should be more on the line. Yes, it's an exhibition race, as you say, but in the middle of a season, of a Cup Series as well, let's not do these silly gimmicks. Let's get on with the racing. And we were talking about it on the shows throughout the week as well. Dropping the stages as well, getting back to pure racing, I think that would increase the viewership, no doubt. And a damage limitation now and cosmetic surgery is needed for the championship.
Well, I'll pass this follow-up to Kobe. I know this was another thing we were talking about before we came on here. There were 24 cars in the All-Star race last night. There are 36 full-time chartered teams. If you do the math, that is literally 2/3 of NASCAR's full-time chartered teams competing in your so-called All-Star race. If 67% of the field is in the All-Star race, how many of them are really All-Stars? That's something else to consider as well. So, Josh, I think you might have just answered the question yourself. I'll go to Kobe first on this one. Do you think it's time to maybe even reconsider what we're doing here and having an all-star race, period?
And this is an interesting question, Ben, because this is something that's been posed not in just NASCAR, but other sports as well. We all know about the criticism over the NFL's Pro Bowl because nobody's playing defense, nobody's trying to tackle because you obviously don't want your franchise quarterback to tear his ACL in a meaningless game, or you don't want your star wide receiver to blow out his knee either. And people wonder, like, why are we still having the NFL Pro Bowl? And the same thing with the NBA All-Star Game. Yes, it's nice seeing all of those awesome tricks and dunks and all of that, but nobody really plays defense in that game either. So people are wondering, what's the point of having the NBA All-Star Game? What's the point of having the NFL Pro Bowl? I'm not sure if the conversation is the same about the MLB All-Star Game or the NHL All-Star Game. You'd probably be a better person to ask about that one, Ben. So when I'm done answering, you can give your take on that. But I think a lot of people are just worn up from the All-Star race. It's really lost its touch. It's lost its appeal. And I don't really see what the solution is. I think maybe just make the Busch Light Clash at the beginning of the season, the All-Star race. I thought what they did in Los Angeles was really good. I thought that was an entertaining product, and it really had me all drawn in. But the All-Star race, it's really become like a thing that the past. Maybe they can try to reform it in some way or so. And I totally agree with the point you were making. When you have like that many cars in the field, like are they really all stars? Like if we're going to use the NBA example, are we going to invite bench players from the Miami Heat play in the NBA All Star game? Or are we gonna have the backup quarterback for, let's say, for Aaron Rodgers? Are we gonna have Jordan Love playing the Pro Bowl as well? It's just I think if we're going to reform the All Star race, I think the field it should be a lot smaller, and on a short track, I think the field size in SRX, which is going to be starting up in a couple of weeks' time, I think that would be a good solution. Put the All-Star race on a short track, and maybe maybe cut down the field size, maybe between 12 and 15, and have like elimination heats, something like that. And I saw some people online also talked about the fact they're fixing up North Wilkesboro again. Maybe they take the All-Star race from Texas Motor Speedway and just move it to North Wilkesboro, and I think that would be a fun Saturday night short track race.
Just to bounce off of what you're bringing up with Major League Baseball and everything, there's been a ton of changes in Major League Baseball that I certainly haven't been happy about. And honestly, one of them was the fact that Major League Baseball's All-Star game was the only All-Star game that actually meant something, because the winning league, the American League or the National League, that team, whoever from that league made the World Series, that team had home field advantage in the World Series. So all the best players on all the best teams were actually playing for something, because should their team make it to the championship series and championship event, there was actually a reward for winning the All-Star game. And that's why the baseball All-Star game historically was the best out of all the four major North American sports leagues. Imagine if you want to go to the NBA, for example, LeBron James made 9 NBA finals in 10 years. When he was in the Eastern Conference with the Heat and the Cavaliers, he was practically guaranteed a ticket to the NBA Finals because the Eastern Conference was much weaker compared to the Western Conference. Imagine how hard LeBron James would play in the All-Star game if that reward was on the line for he and his team. Home court advantage in the NBA Finals. That would actually make the game meaningful, and you would see a good product because LeBron James would actually be trying to play defense and play offense and score as many points as he can, because if the Eastern Conference wins the All-Star game, they get home court advantage. I'm sure some people would probably not be a fan of that. That's why baseball ultimately took it away, because they weren't a fan of it in baseball, but at least it gave the game some sort of meaning. So I don't know if NASCAR could award some bonus points in the championship for the All-Star. I mean, they're already, I think it's a reward to be in the All-Star race. You have to win a race to get into the All-Star race. So you've already done something to get there. Maybe give, like a 10 to 1 point scale for the top 10 finishers of the All-Star race or something like that. They're giving out points in the dual races again. So it's not like they've entirely abandoned the idea of points in exhibition races that don't count towards the full championship. But what we saw last night cannot happen again. If we're going to continue to have this race, there need to be widespread changes all throughout. Certainly the location is one of them. Even if the farce of a finish hadn't happened last night, Texas is not the right place to be hosting the All-Star race. The racing wasn't very good. We saw a lot of tire issues, like we mentioned. I don't know that a short track would be I would prefer them just to go back to Charlotte. I think it's NASCAR's backyard. I think, the event kind of had an identity there. It's hard to build an identity when you're bouncing it around from track to track. But, it would be a shame to see it go, because the All-Star race has produced several great moments, but none of those moments have come in the last decade, and the event has certainly lost its luster.
What about then? I've just been sitting here while you two have made some great points as well. I thought to myself, we've got the All-Star race, but as you say, it's only for people who have won races. Let's make it All-Stars. And when I say that, I mean, let's bring in classic drivers. Let's bring in some champions, race winners as well. Let's get Jimmy Johnson back for a race. Let's get Dale Earnhardt Jr. back for a race as well. Let's get Jeff Gordon. He's still quite competitive as well. He's been out of the car, 3-4 years now? Let's bring it back and have the Legends race instead. It's a fun exhibition race. Maybe not even run the Cup cars so that they don't get damaged. Let's run some classic machinery. Let's instead of racing for this and racing, you can still race for £1 million, but you change the aspect of it as well. It becomes a true all-star race as well. And it becomes more of a tribute to the fans who week in, week out, sit there, go to a race as well, give up their weekend to watch racing. This race was designed to give them something back and for the drivers to go out for a no-pressure race. Let's have that, but bring in some classical drivers with maybe some classic machinery. I mean, over here in the UK, Goodwood works fantastic. The Revival meeting brings loads of different drivers together, loads of different eras as well, and it is always sell-out crowds. Everyone gets into the spirit of it. They dress up in 40s, 50s, 60s outfits as well. A bit like the throwback weekends we see at Darlington as well. Everyone gets behind it. If NASCAR did that as well, I think it would be booming, because it would prove that it could be a stock car championship as well, and it goes back to its roots and says thank you to the fans. So let's get some old swans back.
Josh, I hear what you're saying, and I think it's great in principle, but I do want to bring up Bristol Motor Speedway actually tried this in 2009, 2010. They had this Legends race. It was on ESPN. The ESPN brought their throwback graphics out and everything, and it was a great success. It was very popular, but in the 2010 race, Larry Pearson was in a very serious accident. Charlie Glotzback just absolutely T-boned him. Larry had to go to the hospital, and that was when the event was scrapped, because we recognize these drivers are no longer in their prime anymore. It's great to see them back out there and driving, but there is the fear that somebody might get hurt, especially if you're using older machinery. So, I think it would have to be a very controlled environment. I think it's a great idea in theory. I'm just not sure the execution would work great in principle.
What if we limit it then to a driver who has to pass the physicals, get everything ready, and maybe limited to the past 3 seasons if you've left in the last 3 years?
That could be fair.
Yeah, as you say, just limited. Yeah,
but even then, I would worry. Jeff Gordon, he just turned 50 years old, I think, but he's got a back of somebody twice his age. He had some back problems late in his career. Obviously, Dale Earnhardt Jr. had the issue with the concussion. So, it is a worry of mine, especially when you get guys that haven't been in the car for several years now. I think it's a really fun idea, and I think you saw proof of that when they did the Legends race at Bristol. But if we're going to talk about trying to improve the All-Star race in the meantime, Kobe, you brought this up as well. You obviously have limited roster spots in any other All-Star game across all sports. The playoffs, I think, have been criticized because of the win and you're in thing that, it kind of took from the All-Star race. No disrespect to Michael McDowell at all. Obviously, Front Row Motorsports are on a limited budget compared to the top teams. And it was great to see him win the Daytona 500 last year. But that one win alone got him into the next 2 All-Star races because they take all the winners from the previous year and all the winners from the current year so far. Is Michael McDowell really, if you talk to people, you want to truly define All-Star, is Michael McDowell a Cup Series All-Star, by definition in terms of what we think of an All-Star in other sports? And again, I'm not trying to disrespect him or his team here, but I think if you're honest with yourself, the answer is not really. He was never going to be much of a threat in the playoffs, and that team has come a long way, and Michael has come a long way. But he's not on the level of a Kyle Busch or a Chase Elliott or somebody like that. Do all the winners really need to be in the All-Star race, or should we cap it maybe at somewhere from 12 to 15 drivers? I don't know, Kobe, if you want to maybe take that question.
Yeah, I already said that I believe that that if you do it on a short track or any track, that there should be 15 at max. And I see Adam right there says that he'd vote for NASCAR's All-Star race to move to North Wilkesboro Speedway, and that would be really ironic. North Wilkesboro Speedway, if they took the All-Star race from Texas Motor Speedway, considering what happened the last time around when Texas took from North Wilkesboro, so it would be really funny if that were to occur. But this is I don't really have much more to add here. I just hope NASCAR is able to learn from everything that went wrong in last night's All-Star race at Texas and make it a much better experience in the future. And as Ben was saying, Josh, I really like your idea. I think that would be a lot of fun in theory, but if we're going to do that, I'm not sure how we'll be able to pull that off. As Ben was saying, how to execute it. I remember watching that Legends race at Bristol as well. I remember when Larry Pearson got injured because I was watching that race live on my television on ESPN, and that was it was really scary to see how he got hurt like that. I'm thinking if we're gonna do something like that, maybe if you've been a NASCAR Cup Series driver within the last decade or so, I think that could be something that might work, but might probably have to pass some some special tests, as you suggested, to make sure that they're still fit and competent to be behind the wheel of a race car. Because I know with some of those drivers, they go way faster than a lot of others, in terms of awareness and everything like that.
I mean, just a pin as well. We've got the last generation now of cars that are from last year that nobody's using anymore. Could use them instead. If we put them in a qualifying format, there's something there if we want to change it. So we've got last year's cars just sitting around doing nothing. Let's use them.
Yeah, I want to see ARCA do that. I think that would certainly help with the car counts. Obviously the bodies are similar, but if we just, back in the day, Scott Wimmer famously failed to qualify for an ARCA race. Bill Davis Racing said, "The heck with it. Let's just enter the Cup race." And he gets up front and actually leads a couple of laps. Because the rules are interchangeable. And that was in an era where NASCAR didn't even own ARCA. Now NASCAR and ARCA are under the same entity. So, you see these super low car counts, particularly in the East and West series. I think, we just got rid of a bunch of old Gen 6 cars. Why not go use them somewhere else? Real quick, because I know we got more show to get to. I want to say hi to Seth Lees here, and he has a comment as well. Hate to say it, time to bin this event. Sad, but what purpose does it serve? And I think that's a very fair question. I would certainly, even 5 years ago, I would not be in that group at all. The All-Star race, I think, like I said, has produced some very classic moments over the years. But, you do have to wonder at the same time, what identity is left for this race? What purpose does it serve? And especially if it's just going to be a clown show like this. Kobe, you brought up a Jeff Gluck poll a little bit earlier. The previous record low, I believe, was 17%, the 2016 Brickyard 400. It's tracking to be somewhere between the 10 and 11% range right now. So it's not just going to break the record, it's going to obliterate the record low. I always like to respect other people's opinions and, try to at least see where they're coming from and hear each other out. If you voted yes on the Jeff Gluck poll this week, I would love to hear from you and know what race you were watching or what you saw in the
my finger slipped.
Watching the same race.
I'm sorry, my finger slipped. I meant to vote. I meant to know, but my finger slipped. No. So I'm gonna assume that.
I'm sure there are other people who meant to vote yes, but their finger slipped. There's always multiple people in that group. I think it just canceled each other out. Go ahead, Josh, real quick.
Yeah, I think they meant to say yes. I agree. It was the worst race I've ever seen.
Yeah,
because I've done that many a time. Is like you get those questions on Google, like when we sign in to get our Grid Network stuff as well. It asks you for a code, and sometimes it flashes up saying, "Please click all images with boats." And you look, and there's a little bit of a boat at the end. You think, do I click that? So you click it anyway, and it says, nope, there was no boat in that picture, but it's like there's a mast or something. It's ridiculous as well.
I've done it too. Just, you're scrolling through your Twitter feed, you accidentally like something, or you accidentally click on somebody's info and unfollow them for half a second or something. I mean, I've done all sorts of stuff. The feed sometimes hasn't been super kind to me, but I'm sure some people meant to vote one way, voted the other, but we do have a landslide on that poll there. So it'll be interesting to see when the poll closes tomorrow morning what we stand at.
I accidentally bought something off Amazon because I was doing that. It hit the buy now function as well, and I panicked like mad. In fact, I think I've actually got it here alongside me somewhere, if I can find it. It's on my keyring, actually. Where is it? It's just here.
You know what, Josh? We might actually have some time to find it right now because we're going to move on to the. There we go.
There it is.
Yep.
There we go. The things you find on Amazon.
Well, Josh, we're going to say goodbye to you now. Of course, we'll bring you back in. I know you have some thoughts on some Xfinity debates that are going on right now regarding Cup drivers, so we'll look forward to hearing your opinion on that. In the meantime, let's move on to the Truck Series, and it was Stuart Friesen taking the win, his first win since Phoenix in 2019, and his first win since he switched to running Toyota trucks rather than Chevrolets. Kobe, are you surprised that it took Stuart Friesen this long to get back to victory lane?
Oh, definitely, Ben. I'm really surprised it took Stuart Friesen this long. But you brought up the fact that at the end of 2019 he was running a Chevrolet powered team, and Hallman Friesen Racing really figured out that truck, and then you switch manufacturers to Toyota. And I think, given Toyota's success in that series, especially with Kyle Busch Motorsports, a lot of people expected Stuart Friesen to start running well right away with Toyota. But we saw, as we've seen in the Xfinity Series with Ryan Sieg, when they switched from Chevrolet to Ford in the Xfinity Series, same with Stuart Friesen switching from Chevrolet to Toyota, the adjustment is a lot bigger than you might think. In 2020, Friesen started running the Toyotas. He was able to produce some decent finishes that season, but probably not the finishes that he will hope for, because in 2019 he made the championship 4 and finished 4th in the point standing. And in 2020 he took a major step back, only 15th in the points, and then 2021 rolled around. You could see a massive improvement in his program. He wasn't able to win last year, but he was able to get closer back to his form in 2019 and finish 6th in the point standings. He was very consistent last year. Stewart's had some really good runs so far this year, and finally able to break through at Texas. So I guess we can say Stuart Friesen is back, and depending on how things go throughout the rest of the season, maybe he can be a possible good contender to go back to the championship 4.
Well, of course, that last race he won at Phoenix got him into the championship 4 of last year. The championship race was at Homestead. So it's surprising to me as well. I know Stuart Friesen's obviously a very good Truck Series driver. He's come into his own the last several years. And I think it was surprising to a lot of people that it took so long after the switch to Toyota for him to get back to that point where he could compete for race wins. And now he's at that point. It was only a matter of time before he finally broke through and got one. So great to see him back in victory lane. And who knows if he gets on a run. I think certainly the way this playoff format is these days, you could certainly see him contending for another championship. Now, another driver worth highlighting is Hayley Deegan. Deegan had the best qualifying run of her Truck Series career, starting just outside the top 5 on Friday night with a P6 qualifying effort. However, she faded outside the top 10 by the end of the first stage and only managed to come across the line in 17th place, which matches the best result that she's had so far this season. Now, in her weekly race vlog, Deegan was visibly upset with Todd Bodine, saying the 2-time truck champion, who of course is coming back to run a few races this year, took away what likely would have been about a 12th place finish for her or somewhere in that area. Take a look.
The whatever number is 62 just blows through turn 1, fences me, kills my truck, kills my truck. he goes on to get 12th place finish. Like, if you're gonna be one of those old guys racing that preaches, oh, these kids, or whatever, go to the shop and unload the truck and go, oh, guys, fix it then if you're such a good old guy. You're all about that old time racing. And then some old guy that comes out of retirement decides to fence us because he can't stand being beat by a young kid or girl or whatever.
And that clip is from Hayley Deegan's YouTube channel. Kobe, what is your reaction to that clip, and how would you grade Deegan's season so far?
Well, Ben, in that clip right there, I see a driver who's very frustrated. I see a driver who's under a lot of pressure. Yes, Hayley Deegan as a young driver still needs to get a lot of experience, but you would think in year 2 of running full time in the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series that you would see some improvement. And it also doesn't help her that Ryan Preece is in the same equipment that she's in right now, and every time he gets in a David Gillen racing truck, he always blows her doors off. And it's showing that the equipment is not the problem at all, and we know that this is a perform now type of environment. Now it's not like it used to be in the past when a driver would get time to develop, would get time to make all these mistakes and all of that. But today you need to go out and perform and get the job done. And I'm going to be generous here. I don't want to give Hayley Deegan an F for performance, but I still got to give her a D+ based on how this season has gone. I think we all cut her a lot of slack last year in 2021 because it was her first season running in a truck series. But this year, I have to admit, Ben, I expected a lot more better performances from Hayley Deegan. I will take into consideration that some of the things that have happened this season, it really comes down to bad luck. A lot of things haven't been her fault at all. I thought Texas was actually going to be a decent race for her because she qualified. I believe she was in 6th place. That's right. What she that's what she qualified. So I thought this would be a great opportunity for Hayley Deegan to possibly get a top 10 finish, or even a top 15. I believe until then, same with Bodine. She said in her video she was on pace to finish 12th, but ended up finishing a disappointing 17th, which actually, as you mentioned, tied her best results. And looking at the Truck Series standings, after this first stretch of races, Hayley is sitting 26th in the point standings, which is extremely disappointing for her. And I'm going to say some names of some of the drivers who are ahead of her in points. Hayley's run every single race so far this season. Jesse Little is ahead of her in 24th, and he's run 3 less races than her. Corey Heim, who's not even running full time in the Truck Series for Kyle Busch Motorsports, he has a race victory, and he's run 4 less races than Hayley. Her teammate Ryan Preece has only run a total of 4 races so far overall, and he's 17th in points, well ahead of Hayley. And Parker Kligerman sitting 15th in points. He's also run 4 less races than Hayley Deegan. She's run every race, and she's stuck down in 26. And I think right now Hayley knows that she needs to perform, and she needs to start performing soon, because at some point in the future, if this current form continues for her, Ford Performance might say, we're gonna pull the plug from Hayley Deegan, and we're gonna move on and invest in a driver who can get the results done. I know that sounds very harsh, but I believe that's the facts, because as I said, this is an environment where you have to get the job done and perform now, and if Ford Performance feels like that nothing's working so far with their investment in Hayley Deegan, they may decide to take their monies and invest in another driver in a truck series, maybe like a Zane Smith, who's really killing it for Front Row Motorsports.
Real quick, we have a comment from Seth here. I like Deegan, but not sure I'd be taking shots at a driver who's one of the best truck drivers ever. Of course, Ty Bodine is the 2-time Truck Series champion. And, just to bounce off of that, it was kind of ironic to me. I think Hayley was certainly not in the wrong in terms of what happened on the last lap in this particular instance. But you have to remember, she has built her brand on being a very aggressive driver all the way back in her K&N days. She won all 3 of her K&N West races with contact on the last lap. The last one saw her spin Derek Kraus, her teammate at the time, out entirely. So I think it's just, she has to watch, what she says. If that's going to be the reputation that she built for herself, there's nothing wrong with being an aggressive driver. But, I think the comments might be viewed in a different light when that's your reputation. And Ty Bodine does a similar move to you, and that's what you have to say about it. This has been my concern, really, ever since Deegan was winning that race at Meridian. I still remember that night. It's hard to believe it's been almost 4 years. I remember she was on NASCAR Race Hub, NASCAR America, on FS1 and NBCSN respectively, and the NASCAR social media channels were interviewing her and everything. And I said at the time, and I said this back in the days when I was hosting the photo finish on Scott Radio at Gordon College, so this has been something that I've been talking about for years now. My problem has never been that the media has pushed Hayley Deegan as a potential future superstar. The problem to me has been that they have pushed her excessively while at the same time also not pushing drivers like Derek Kraus at the time in K&N West, who ended up winning a championship in 2019, like Derek Thorne, who won the championship in 2018 when Deegan won her first race, and other race winners in K&N that have gone on to have successful careers. And I also brought up, Dylan Kwasniewski was a two-time K&N champion. He won championship in K&N West and then moved to the East Series, won a championship there as well. Lasted a season and a half basically in Xfinity before his career kind of fizzled out. And now he's doing some great things for himself in real estate. But K&N success has never been a surefire indicator of where you're going to end up on the NASCAR ladder. I think there is still time for Deegan to improve. But like you said, Kobe, when your teammate has run 3 or 4 fewer races than you have, and he's still ahead of you in points, that to me is an indicator that the equipment excuse, you could maybe say DGR lost some momentum when they did their switch from Toyota to Ford, as a lot of teams do when you switch manufacturers. But when you have Ryan Preece, ahead of her in points, not running the full schedule, and Zane Smith, I think that truck is, technically under the Front Row Motorsports banner, but it's, similar to what the Wood brothers have with Penske. They get a lot of stuff from David Gilliland's team, and David's own son was driving the truck last year, so it's a similar and related truck. And Zane Smith has been on fire this year and could be a championship 4 contender. Absolutely. The equipment excuse really doesn't exist. So there certainly has to be some improvement for Deegan sooner rather than later at this rate. And I think it's unfortunate because, I was expecting her to have a solid run, like you were saying, at Texas when she qualified up close to the top 5. But, it just kind of faded back to running in the teens where she's been all year. It's been kind of disappointing.
Yeah, it's been quite disappointing to see how Hayley Deegan's season is going, and I know with the way things go with some drivers, nowadays you see more drivers going straight from ARCA to the Xfinity Series because a lot of people are wondering like what's the point of moving to the truck series, since the cars handle a lot differently than the trucks handle a lot differently than the cars do. And I know moving up to ARCA to Xfinity is quite a big jump within itself. But look at Ty Gibbs. He's handled that extremely well. And also the 2 Rev Racing drivers, Nick Sanchez, he's going to be doing some races with BJ McLeod Motorsports already done so. Man, he handled the jump well. Roger Carruth as well. So it shows you that you can go straight out of ARCA into Xfinity and be really successful. And I know right now, considering Hayley Deegan's form in the truck series, a lot of people might be wondering why in the world would even put her in an Xfinity car right now. But I'm thinking, if it should be considered, see how she would do in an Xfinity race. Schedule 1 Xfinity race later on this year, maybe at a short track or whatever, just to see how she handles those cars compared to the other ones. I know when Harrison Burden, who's now, he's really struggling right now in the Cup Series, and that's to be expected as a rookie. But I'm sure a lot of people think Harrison Burden should be running a lot better, considering that he's in a quote unquote Penske car with the Wood brothers right now. Harrison Burden, when he was coming up, he was running extremely well on the short tracks and the late models. Go out to the truck series, he didn't show the same form, and then he goes to the NASCAR Xfinity Series in the car versus the truck, and he performs a lot better. And the potential that he showed in the Xfinity cars, that's what ended up landing him the Cup ride with Wood Brothers Racing. So I'm wondering, would Hayley Deegan be better suited for the NASCAR Xfinity Series car and potentially run a lot better in that series than she's doing in the truck series?
I think regardless, if things don't improve soon, then you have to consider something like that, because I don't know that the status quo is going very well. Unfortunately, like you mentioned, 17th is, I think she's done it 3 times this year, but equals her best finish. You're more than a third of the way into the season driving a truck with the equipment level of David Gilliland Racing. You should be a little bit higher than that, especially in your second season. So, and she was there. She did get, I think a 13th and 14th at this point last season, but to only have 1 top 10 in what's almost a season and a half now driving a truck like that, it does make you wonder if something is going to have to change at some point. But of course, we'll be following Deegan's progression. And of course, I'm sure Joe and Daniel will be on the Women in Motorsports program as well. And now we'll move on to the Xfinity Series and recap that event. And we'll bring Josh back in as well here. I'm sorry, I keep doing that. I'm trying to add you guys back stage, and then it reverts back here. But sorry about that. Let's move on and cover the Xfinity race. Tyler Reddick took the first victory for Big Machine Racing Team in their team history with a win on Saturday. Fellow series champion William Byron, you see him up there as well, finishing right behind in second. And once again, with this, the debate was sparked on social media regarding whether or not Cup drivers should be allowed to step into the Xfinity Series and take wins away from series regulars. Now, somebody that I know very well, NASCAR's Brock Beard, even wrote an entire op-ed this weekend saying that it's time to ban the drivers outright. And here's an excerpt from his article saying, "The time has finally come for NASCAR to make things black and white. If their intent with the past rule changes has been to keep Cup drivers out of lower series, then they need to ban Cup drivers outright. Anything less will only encourage Cup teams to come up with even more workarounds to get their Cup drivers into races where they don't belong, which will remain a threat to both the identity and health of the lower series." So, like I said, we'll bring Josh back in to answer this question. Josh, I've likened this to Lewis Hamilton running an F2 race. Is it time for NASCAR to crack down on Cup drivers in Xfinity, a series whose motto is names are made here? Or is the status quo a good compromise where, it's not like 10 to 15 years ago when they could run unlimited races? We have limitations on them now, but it does still irk some fans from time to time.
I think it's about time we ban them outright. This is ridiculous. I mean, this is the junior series as well to the Cup series. There's still championships in their own right as well. And we've got some great racing in the Xfinity and in the Truck Series. Yes, we have guest drivers occasionally, like who are retired Cup Series racers. That is perfectly fine as well. But when you've got active Cup drivers coming in to the Xfinity Series as well, it's not just unfair for those who race in the Xfinity Series, it's unfair for those who race in the Cup Series because they're getting more time out on the track, they're getting more time to learn the corners as well. Yes, you can argue different machinery, but it's still got a steering wheel and four wheels, and if you head out there, you're going to learn something new every single time. So I think it's very unfair. I think it's about time we get rid of it. And to be fair, it is the equivalent of Lewis Hamilton racing in Formula 2, and it's ridiculous because it's a mockery of the junior series. And what it basically says to everybody in the Xfinity Series and the Truck Series is that you're not good enough to be here. We're going to bring in the big guns to do your job, basically. And it's not nice. It's like being a rookie. It is literally like you get your first job. They put you on an assignment and you're feeling really proud of yourself. And then you're doing it well, nothing's wrong, but they send in the manager in order to do it for you as well. It's just emotionally draining, mentally draining. It's not a good mix. So yeah, ban them outright. Keep them to their own series. You're in the Cup Series. You're doing the dream. The guys below want to be where you are, and this is how they get there. Stop nicking their drives. Stop being greedy. Just leave. Keep to your own series.
And Josh, you brought up a good point about why actually the reason why you have Cup drivers in these races is to get, since we have such limited practice nowadays, that they want to get that extra track time. They want to learn something for the race on Sunday. And to be honest, I'm not really sure if NASCAR will try to ban Cup drivers outright. I would be really surprised if they took that route. I know there's a lot of arguments on both sides of the fence, and before we came on here, I was actually looking up the official rules for Cup drivers in Xfinity and Truck Series races. Right now, if you're a full-time active Cup driver, you can only run 5 Xfinity races max and 5 NASCAR Camping World Truck Series max. And also they ban Cup drivers from competing in any of the Xfinity and Truck Series playoff races or the Xfinity Dash for Cash events. And the only Cup drivers who are an exception to the 5 race limit is if you have less than 3 years of full-time NASCAR Cup Series experience, then you can basically run in as many Xfinity races as you want. So if they wanted to further, so I think if they wanted to further crack down on Cup drivers, because I don't see them banning them outright. I think if they wanted to further crack down is to get rid of what I just said. If you're a full-time Cup driver, it doesn't matter if you're a rookie in Cup. You have to stick to the 5 race limit. You can't run. You can't run 6. You can't run 7 Xfinity races. I see that as potentially, just being realistic here. I think that's probably going to be the next thing if they decide to have a further crackdown. Instead of being a full-time Cup driver for more than 3 years, if you're 1 or 2 years, you can't run no more than 5 races. So I think that's probably the most likely route.
First of all, I missed this. Seth giving you a compliment there, Josh, the race fan that never sleeps. And then, you coming in here, of course, we appreciate it. I know it's after 1 a.m. for you. Thank you so much for staying on with us. We'll try not to keep you too late here. Seth says, hate it, have always hated it. Also, it makes no sense. IndyCar drivers don't race in the new lights. F1 drivers don't race in F2. This brings up a good point. Brad Perez, somebody that I've got a tremendous amount of respect for, Kobe. I know you feel the same way. He chimed in. He disagreed with Brock. He likes seeing the Cup drivers come in. He thinks it benefits the drivers in those series to have a chance to race against those drivers. And I'm certainly not going to sit here and criticize him for holding that opinion, because he is far more qualified to talk about that than I am, considering he is actually part of a Truck Series team and has even gotten a chance to race in trucks this year. But he said, when I brought this point up about Lewis Hamilton going to F2 or Scott Dixon going to Indy Lights, he also said something that if we want to compare it to the open wheel road, because Josh, like you mentioned, there are some veterans that used to be in the Cup Series or tried to make it in the Cup Series, didn't really make it, are now back in Xfinity or are now back in trucks. Whereas if you go to the open wheel road, it's pretty much all teenagers and early 20-somethings trying to get to that level. Let's make sure that the Xfinity drivers, or that the Xfinity cars and truck cars, are never faster than the Cup Series cars, which is what we've seen the last few years with the 550 horsepower package. And I am in total agreement with him on that. It's driven me crazy watching the timing sheets, and even the ARCA cars, I think in Michigan, were faster than the Cup Series cars one year. I mean, it was just absurd to think about. You have teenagers in ARCA trying to get so much as to the Truck Series or Xfinity Series, and they're going faster than the supposed 40 best stock car drivers in the world. So I'm totally with him on that. But I don't think it's a complete BS analogy or anything like that either. This is a series that brands itself, like I mentioned, the slogan is "Names are made here." So why are names that have already been made there going back there to take a spot? I mean, to use the example from Tyler Reddick, he's taking a car that was driven by Jay Buford earlier this season. That's one more name that could be in the series trying to be made there that is not made there, because a name that was made there twice, 2-time Xfinity champion, is taking his place. So even when they don't win the race, I saw people say, it's more satisfying when, David Gilliland goes out at Kentucky in 2006, or Jeremy Clements goes out at Road America in 2017, and they beat Cup drivers to get those wins. And I get all of that. But regardless of where they finish, they're still taking a spot from the grid that could have gone to an Xfinity regular or an up-and-comer to give him or her that opportunity. So it's just something that I've never personally been a fan of. I understand both sides of it, but it's not something that I enjoy. Kobe, you have something to add to that?
Oh yes, and if you look at the entry list for the Xfinity race at Charlotte, and you look at Big Machine Racing driving the number 48 this week, it's Austin Dillon who's in the car, so another NASCAR Cup Series driver.
And that was something that was also brought up as well. There's a loophole kind of, which I think Brock was alluding to in his article. The drivers have the limit. The team does not have a limit. But I think even Reddick, you were saying, Kobe, it's 3 years. Reddick obviously won the Xfinity Championship in 19, so this would be his 3rd Cup season. So I guess Reddick could be unlimited. But theoretically, what Big Machine could do is have Tyler Reddick in the car for 5 races, then bring Austin Dillon into the car for 5 races, then you could bring another Cup car or Cup driver into the car for 5 races, and that car always has a Cup driver in it. So it's a loophole, like I said, of a team getting around that.
It's not fair. It is not fair at all. And it's a bit like, it is literally like you're being held back in school. That's what it must feel like as well. And you feel like, when you have to repeat the same grade, that these guys know every trick of the trade. They know every trick of these cars as well. So they're obviously going to be a lot faster than the people who are just learning it as well. And it's unfair. I mean, I cannot imagine the war that would happen. I mean, yes, it was in the 50s, 60s, and even in the early 70s. It wasn't that uncommon to see F1 drivers racing F2. Of course, Jim Clark was killed in an F2 race at Hockenheim. So it's not that unusual to see for them to see them doing it differently. But then it sort of got brought in with Bernie as well, that drivers in F1 stuck to F1 and only F1. There was a contract as well. And that's why when Bernie left, Fernando took the opportunity to fly off and do the Indy 500 in 2017. So it became that bubble for the European fans, at least, that if you did a top world championship, you only did that series. WEC opened the door that you could go and do Indy and Formula E and World Endurance Championship and start mixing up. F1 then started doing it. You could do the Indy 500 and you can do F1. What's happening now as well is the fact is that with NASCAR as well, it's becoming that on the same weekend you can do as many races. I mean, if I was, give an example, William Byron, you just mentioned as well. What's stopping him running the Cup Series, running the Xfinity, and then running the truck? Nothing. He could run all three, get so much track data for himself, and then end up winning the Cup race because he's got more time out there. They need to limit, I think, not only the amount of races they can run, but say, okay, this weekend, you want to run in the Xfinity Series, you only run in the Xfinity Series. You're not allowed to race in the Cup Series or the Truck Series. You limit them as to where they want to race. I think that'll shut it up quite nicely because you've still got that loophole of you can have a Cup driver in your car, but he's only racing in that series. You're not allowed to move around. And then, if that happens, put one of the Xfinity car, drivers into the Cup Series car. Have it as a trade around. See what they do in a one-off race. And that way we get the juniors coming up and having a go, and the Cup Series still get their things running the Xfinity. Yes, it removes the track time, but I think that's a fair compromise. You want to race here, you're only allowed to race here. And I think that's a good, both manipulative, threatening deal that I think they should go for.
And Josh, I wanna piggyback off of something you said. I'm not sure if you noticed, but at the beginning of every NASCAR season, all of the NASCAR drivers, they have an opportunity to declare which series they want to run for driver points. And I think one way to close the loophole, I know right now, it was just like Tyler Reddick winning for Big Machine Racing. He was able to earn that car points in the owners championship. I think a possible way to shut down that loophole would be if you're yes, obviously, Reddick's not scoring any points in Xfinity because he's a full-time Cup driver, but maybe NASCAR drops down the hammer and says if you have a Cup driver in that 48 car, you can also not score any owners points as well. And that's really why we're seeing Cup drivers running for smaller teams now in Xfinity Series, but still supported by a Cup team, kind of like we saw Cole Custer win for Bobby Daughter's operation. That's going to help him out a lot. And last year, we saw Kevin Harvick run for BJ McLeod Motorsports, helped him out in the owners points as well. And that's really the motivation for some of these smaller teams in the Xfinity Series, linking up with these Cup teams and getting Cup and getting Cup drivers. Really, it obviously improves their program, which is one of the positives in this. But I think if they want to further crack down with the Cup drivers in those races, be like, we know you're already not earning any drivers points, but if you're in this car, you can not earn owners points as well. I think that would really be the end of it.
Yeah, quite cool.
Well, and Seth comes in here with another good point. If it has to happen, at least it was a team like Big Machine instead of a bigger team. And I'm with you on that, Seth. I think this is certainly preferable to Tyler Reddick coming down for RCR or Cole Custer getting in the Stuart Haas 98 or whatever the case may be. It is tremendous for their respective teams, Bobby Daughter and, Big Machine here, that they were able to experience those wins, but it's still not a perfect situation, if you ask me.
Yeah, it's a complete mess. NASCAR is just a mess at the moment, isn't it? It delivers some great racing, but it is a mess. And I'm fearing that if they don't get a top of it soon, we could be entering a dark time in terms of it all, in terms of the fact that the drivers are already not happy with race control. They're not happy with all this, with the Xfinity Truck Series as well. We've got something great with these new cars. They can race, and there is delivering some great racing. But I even said this actually in Daytona on Grid Network. We're going to enter a dark time if they're not careful. A civil war could break out if they're not careful.
Well, I've seen people on Twitter the last several years talk about, drivers aren't happy with the package, drivers aren't happy with the Atlanta reconfiguration. Are we on the verge of a kart IRL style split here? If enough drivers speak up and aren't happy with any changes that are being made. Obviously I don't think that would be something, especially not in the short term, that would be good for the health of the sport, but it is something you need to consider. One final thing before we move on here that I want to bring up real quick. Another argument that I think people have used when they talk about Xfinity drivers wanting to race against the Cup guys. I think Brock would probably side with me on this. I would just say racing Cup. I don't think it's impossible, even in the charter era. Daniel Hemrick did a couple of races for RCR. Harrison Burton made his Cup debut with the Gaunt brothers. So there are opportunities, I think, for teams like Spire or Rick Ware or smaller outfits like that if you want to get a taste of a Cup series. I know it's harder in the charter era. I think that was something that a friend of mine said to me, but you can't really say that in this era, 10 to 15 years ago, maybe. But, of course, my response to that would be just get rid of a charter system and your problem is solved. But I'm sure that's easier said than done. Let's move on here real quick and close out the show. Josh, again, thanks so much for staying with us. I know it's getting very early in the morning over there, not even late at night. But one final thing I want to point out here, I'll pull up the race results for everybody one more time. AJ Allmendinger's streak is still alive. He finished 9th. He got a little bit of a scare there at the end with some contact with Justin Allgaier, but he does extend that top 10 streak, and he leads the point standings as well by 44 markers over Noah Gragson, though he does only have that one win at COTA, so he's a little bit behind in the playoff grid. Kobe, are you surprised that AJ Allmendinger has been able to keep this top 10 streak going for as long as he has?
And Ben, before I answer your question, I wanted to piggyback off what Josh said about potentially entering a dark time in NASCAR. I want to bring up the fact of an article that come up today from Adam Stern from the Sports Business Journal about Denny Hamlin, a conversation he had with NASCAR CEO and Chairman Jim France in March about wanting to see a change in NASCAR's current business model. And Denny Hamlin's not the first person to criticize the current business model in NASCAR. And Denny Hamlin said all of his further significant investments into 2311 racing and a NASCAR Cup Series, he's put that on hold for the meantime until he sees some major changes. And Hamlin's quoted said that it's very hard to convince dinosaurs that they have to try to eat differently, bringing up that analogy there on how hard it is, to talk to the higher ups at NASCAR and basically trying to promote change. Because I know a lot of people are afraid to speak their true mind because they're afraid of potential consequences that follow. And it's interesting you mentioned that, Josh, because of the situation with Denny Hamlin. Obviously was upset last night after the All-Star race, and then this is something else that come up. It just really shows that a lot of the drivers in the garage are just not happy with NASCAR right now. So I'm not really sure where this is gonna go for now. Do you guys want to respond to that? You want me to answer the question you asked about Allmendinger, Ben?
Josh, if you have something to say, I'll stay out of this one. But if you want to respond to that,
it begins. Civil war. That's all. That's it. And we're going to see they're going to start taking sides. This is it. Ladies and gentlemen, NASCAR Civil War.
Yeah, I hope it doesn't get to the point of reaching a full-blown civil war, but it just goes to show it's really interesting timing that this piece by Adam Stern finally surfaces when all the drama, the All-Star race, and then once again talking about Cup drivers and Xfinity and truck races. It's just a lot to unpack. We could probably do like a 5 or 6 hour show on all of this if we had the time, and it still wouldn't be enough time to truly hit the root of the problem. But getting back to the question you asked Ben about AJ Allmendinger's top 10 streak, to be honest, I'm very surprised after I believe 12 races so far in this year's Xfinity Series season, AJ Allmendinger has not finished at the top 10 yet, and that is extremely surprising, especially when you throw in the restrictor plate races, Daytona and Talladega, and I guess Atlanta, which we're calling that a restrictor plate track now, because it's really hard to finish in the top 10 at those very unpredictable events. And AJ Allmendinger actually finished in the top 5 and on all 3 of those events where you see all the crazy pack racing and AJ Allmendinger has been traditionally known as a really good road course racer. He got the win at Circuit of the Americas, no surprise there. Has also been known as a solid short track racer. Got 4th place finish at Richmond, 3rd at Martinsville, and it's just all these different types of tracks, super speedways, the mile and a halves, the road courses, the short tracks. I think right now AJ Allmendinger is showing us that he can be a major threat for the championship once again this year. He's one of the most. I think he is the most consistent driver in the NASCAR Xfinity Series this year. But I actually had not realized that he had finished in the top 10 in every single race up to this point. I think that's a real incredible stat in college racing. You know, keep building their program, because it seems like AJ Allmendinger is really holding that team afloat right now, because Daniel Hemrick, last year's champion, and Landon Castle, 2 newcomers to the team, they haven't been able to match AJ Allmendinger's consistency so far.
It has certainly been a very impressive start to the year, and of course we know Colleague are always very strong on the super speedways, so it may be a surprise that he's done it in all 3, because you expect at least once in a while to get caught up in something not of your own doing, but been a very strong start to the year for him, although he does only have that 1 win, so might be time for him to maybe break through and score a couple more of those to better position himself in the playoffs. We'll just have to wait and see how that all goes. Now I want to get to the one shining moment segment. It's a shame we don't have Adam here, because I know that's his favorite part of the show here. But Josh, I know you were very busy covering Indy 500 practice and qualifying all week. It's been great to have you on the show tonight. I know you haven't gotten to be on our programming all weekend, so this can be all-star race. I got to think it's probably not from the all-star race, because I don't think there were very many shining moments there. But Formula One, W Series, anything you want to talk about, anything we talked about tonight, what is your one shining moment from the entire motorsports weekend?
My one shining moment will go to Alexander Albon, and it will go to the Albono's hair salon that he had in the paddock throughout the weekend as well. Basically, you pay 20 euros as well, and you will get your hair dyed red. And the spray paint, it's hair dye. It comes out within 2-3 washes as well, and it's all good fun. It was all good fun for charity as well. It was for children's charity, and I like how Albon turned something that he thought was a superstition into something good for charity as well. So my weekend special one shining moment goes to him. Racing driver doing good things for charity, having fun with it as well. And I think he raised over €4,500 euros as well in that week. So top guy. He doesn't love Alexander Albon as well. And I think as well, some of the F1 teams said that they're going to throw in money as well to that. So whether it's a couple more thousands, I don't know. But that was just from the cash from the mechanics, the teams, and anyone else who came by in the paddock as well. Over 4,000. That is brilliant. So that's my one shining moment. Well done, Alex. Well done.
Yeah, it's really nice to see Alex Albon making the most of his second opportunity to be in Formula One, which is rare, because we don't always see drivers who get put out of Formula One at first get a second attempt to come back, and he's definitely overachieving in the Williams, making his teammate Nicholas Latifi look bad. So Alex Albon definitely got to give him a round of applause for his incredible performances we've seen so far from him this year. With that said, my one shining moment definitely has to be Scott Dixon's record-breaking qualifying run of the breaking Scott Braden's record with the best 4-lap average over 234 miles per hour. That was just incredible. Indy 500 qualifying journal is absolutely exhilarating. I think Roman Grosjean, he said that was absolute nuts. He's been in Formula One, and he thought that was one of the wildest things he's ever done in his racing careers. They're going over 240 miles per hour down the backstretch, 240 miles per hour going down into turn 1. And you were just on the edge of your seat. And Scott Dixon's qualifying run, I was like, oh my goodness, they are absolutely hauling it. It was just quite a spectacle. I guess that's why they call it the greatest spectacle in racing. Seeing him able to hold 4 consistent laps at that high rate of speed, it was just unbelievable to see. What he did, scoring all of these Indy 500 poles, and it was just remarkable to be able to witness history like that, because being able to drive the car on the edge like that at these speeds, Wow, a lot. These drivers are. I think I said it yesterday that these drivers are so fearless because because if you look off to the right, there's the wall right there. If you miss the corner and get it wrong, that's gonna be a really big shot. I see Seth right there says we went nuts on USRN watching it. Yeah, it was a really a lot of fun watching that qualifying such on that. And to be honest with you, I think a lot of people enjoyed watching qualifying over a race, which was the All Star race last night.
It took the words right out of my mouth. I was holding my breath. I think we all knew that Scott was going to get the pole once he started his fourth lap. It was a matter of could he break the 234-mile-an-hour barrier, and he did. And, it's so incredible to see what he's been able to do with Ganassi, and who knows, maybe this will be the year that he finally gets his second 500. Kobe, you took mine, so I guess I'll try to think of something else here really quick, but I do want to give a call to Lewis Hamilton. I know that he has had the roughest start to a season that he's had in quite some time, certainly in his Mercedes career in the V6 turbo hybrid era. For him to, get to that point in the opening lap where he was talking about retiring the car to save the engine. He was so far back after the puncture on the opening lap, and then to drive through the field without the help of the safety car all the way back up to fourth place. I know he fell back to fifth by the end of it, but it was still an incredible comeback drive for him and his Mercedes team. I think the upgrades that they brought to Spain are certainly starting to show that the car has some potential in it. I don't think they're quite where Red Bull and Ferrari are yet, but the fact that Lewis was able to come back and drive through the field, and that's been an issue with Lewis, this season when he gets mired back there. Not only is the car not as strong as it's been in years past, but it also doesn't follow traffic very well, and it's hard to overtake. So the fact that Lewis on a track that's notorious for not being able to give drivers too many overtaking opportunities, to be able to come through and come back up to a top 5 finish shows that Lewis Hamilton still got it, and hopefully Mercedes can give him a car capable of, if not competing for a championship this season. I think this season might already be lost already in terms of that, but hopefully he can get a couple of race wins by the end of the year and keep that streak alive of having at least one win every season he's been in the sport. So that is going to wrap it up for us tonight. A bit of a long show here, but there's been a lot to talk about. If you like what we've talked about tonight, consider investing in the Grid Network. Help keep us on the air throughout 2022 and beyond, and follow us on all of our social media platforms, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. And a special thank you, as always, to our Patreon supporters, Colin, Deshelle, Mark, and Robin. And if you prefer to make a one-time donation, you can buy us a coffee as well for your favorite on-air talent. Thanks, as always, to Ed, Amber, and Zachary, who have already done so. Also, visit our sponsor, Public.com, the stock market social media home. The referral code right down there, GridNet. It's in the description as well. It'll get you $5 free to invest. Public.com allows you to connect with your friends, make new friends, and use tools to learn how to invest in the stock market. Now, Wednesday, Kobe and Adam Lemeris will be back with Grid Tonight. Joe and Daniel will have the Women in Motorsports program on Thursday. And Grid Live will be back for more extended coverage this week as we get ready for the Indy 500 and the Monaco Grand Prix before and the Coca-Cola 600 after. It's the best race weekend in motorsports. Any final thoughts from either of you, Kobe or Josh?
Throw in the Nürburgring 24 hours as well, and whoever decided that this weekend needed something else as well, I hate you, because I'm covering so much this weekend as well, and I've got something else to watch, because I've got British Touring Car Championship, MotoGP, Formula 1, Formula 2, and the Indy 500. So whoever put the calendar together this year, I hate you. Next year, please just put Monaco and Indy. That'll do me.
Yeah, Josh, I totally feel your pain there. I'm covering a lot of races myself this weekend, covering both ARCA and trucks on Friday night. Then got Xfinity on Saturday, and then a very long day on Sunday. I'm covering the Monaco Grand Prix, the Indy 500, and then the Coca-Cola 600, which probably won't end until almost midnight here on the East Coast. So it's going to be a very long weekend of race. I also want to give a shout out to everybody here at Grid Network, because this is the 10th straight day we've been on the air. Our coverage 10 days in a row. I believe that's the most we've ever done in a row so far. So I want to give a big shout out to everybody, especially you Ben, you Josh, and Adam, for what we did last week. It's really a lot of fun doing the practice coverage every single day, and really worthwhile. I appreciate all of the viewers as well for engaging with us and liking and subscribing to Grid Network. So we got a few new subscribers. So really appreciate everybody here at the team and everyone everywhere who supports Grid Network. We thank you so much.
Completely echo that statement. And thanks as always, of course, to everybody that continues to support us here. For Kobe Lambeth from The Podium Finish, for Joshua Burch from his Motorsports YouTube channel, I'm Ben Schneider. Thanks as always for watching. Have a wonderful weekend.
Don't be an anonymous investor. Join the stock market social media platform, public.com. Invest any amount of money and share with friends and new friends. Discover new opportunities, such as new companies and potential business partners, and useful tools for beginners, and share your experience with friends on public.com. Link in the video description gets you $5 for being a Grid Network viewer. Use the referral code GridNet for your free $5 to invest. Start investing and networking on public.com.